What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Side Swipe with the boys over at MTR, and today I am going to I'm going to try and keep this video under 30 minutes, but I'm going to tackle this 30-minute video, make an entire CarX full tuning guide. I'm going to go over all the settings in CarX and try and show the internet how I tune, how I've become a podium driver, how my builds are made, and hopefully you learned something from me today, and hopefully you stop the video, take notes, try some of this on your own. But today I'm going to be going over suspension, alignment, wheels, brakes, engine, transmission, differential, everything, gearing. We're going to go over everything, and hopefully by the end of this video you have a little bit of a grasp on how to tune in CarX. This is going to be geared more towards a comp build. There's going to be a couple things in here that might be settings that you want to change for your street builds. I will go over most of that, but this is going to be geared more towards comp setups because that's what I specialize in, that's what I do, that's what I'm good at. So without further ado, let's get on with it. I'm going to choose a car that I've never bought before, just so I can prove that I don't have a tune for this car. I haven't spent excessive time putting this car together. This is going to be from the ground up. It's going to be with a car I've never driven before. It's going to be a car I don't have an ultimate tune for. I've never done anything to this car, and today that car is going to be the Toyota Corolla. So I'm going to come down, purchase this car, and make this happen. Here we go. Toyota Corolla 2019, $1 million. Here we go in the garage. All right, first off, I just want to go over kind of my initial thoughts, kind of what goes through my mind before I even touch a car. Right now, the first thing that I see are these nasty tiny rims, and I already know that this car is going to have a little bit of a difficulty with those tiny rims. But don't worry, comp setups, usually we have spec sheets, and those spec sheets are going to tell us exactly what we're supposed to be running, and usually those rims are a good fit for the car. Not always, but most of the time. Those specs are going to be D1 comp specs. You can find the D1 comp specs in the D1 Discord server. I'm going to be using them today on 100s. I'll put the link over. Maybe I'll put this as an overlay right here as I'm talking about it, what those specs are, so you can go over them and what I'm going to be using. I just want a baseline for everything. I think the D1 specs, they've been taken from a couple of other specs from different series, but I think the D1 specs are pretty rounded. I think they're pretty good for every car and the weight class. So without further ado, that's the specs I'm going to be using today, is D1 comp specs. So with that out of the way, first thing I want to do is figure out the weight of the car, and we're going to throw this car on ultimate tune already. So looks like we're going, our wheels are getting a little bit bigger anyway on the ultimate tune. Go ahead and buy this, put that together, and now we're ready to roll. Finding weight can be found using Kino or by backing out of the dyno just like I did and finding it right here under 1250 kg. This is our weight right here, and under that class it's going to be 1250 kg right at the bottom of the 255 class. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this car on 255s while I'm at it. It looks like we're on 255s and 19-inch wheels. We're already on 19s, a little bit too big already. Down to 255s, and we'll start there. Really small tire for this car, but actually, you know what, this car is really light. It's gonna be really awesome to try and get this put together. I like 6.2 swaps. That's my thing. That's what I like to do. I like the power you get from them, but I might do something a little bit different with this car. We'll see. Most likely will be 6.2 swapping. That's what I like to do. I like the weight. Sometimes you can get up in a different weight class with a 6.2 swap. It doesn't look like this car is going to be able to gain that much weight with a 6.2 swap. So it's probably gonna just add more weight we don't need. So that being said, we're gonna go over suspension. All right, I'm gonna go over what I set everything off to start with. I don't like driving cars with ultimate tune. There's specific settings that I adjust first before I even put the car on the track. I already know where settings are kind of what it's supposed to be, and I adjust them from there. So toe, I usually just bump that down, -10. In the rear, I already know I'm going to be running full positive toe. It's just what I do in most of my comp cars. Some cars, they actually get a negative effect from that. So I might be pulling that back later. I'm going to explain all these settings in detail. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through these too fast. I'm just going to set them the way I set them before I adjust the car. And then we'll go through everything and what's going on in my mind and how I'm tuning the car and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Camber, this is going to have to go a significant amount in the negative direction. So I think I'm going to start with 5 for now. Shoot for 5. That's about 5. I hate CarX's little notching in the dyno stand, but that's okay. I already know this is going to be in the positive area, so I'm going to go ahead and throw this up. As we change the stiffness, that number is going to change. Right now it's kind of wonky because the car's super low and the stiffness is not right yet. Caster, I usually go ahead and throw this up at 10 degrees. Steering axis offset, I might mess with this later. That's going to change the way the car doubles over, the way it transitions. That's another setting you can pull, you can change to bring speed out of a car that you just can't get enough out of. So I'm going to leave that at 10 millimeters right now. Max steering angle, obviously you want as much as you can. Ackerman angle, I'm going to pull this way down to like 55. Usually most of my comp builds end up at 50% just flat. And then my kingpin inclination, might not mess with this today. I might mess with it just a little bit. I might leave it at 10. I might not touch it at all. Now, this is alignment. Stiffness. Now, spring length. Generally, you want your car to look kind of hard. You want it a little low. You want things to go right before you adjust the spring length. You want to adjust your spring stiffness. For me, I want to run a little bit stiffer front end and a softer rear end. I don't want it too soft in the rear end like it is right now, and I don't want the front end this low either. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this up. I think I'm going to pick just a wild number. You don't want to go too much in a smaller car just because there's not a lot of weight. So if you go into like 110, 120 area, you're in like the chaser kind of weight class. If you're down in like S15, now you're down to like 100. And I guess for the Corolla now, I think I might go with like maybe 85, maybe 90. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go up to 90. I'm gonna leave it at 90. It might be too stiff, but we can always adjust later. Rear end, I'm gonna keep a little bit soft, but I'm gonna bump this up as well. I do want the suspension to be a little bit more predictable, and that's how you do it, by stiffening it up so you can feel the road, you can feel the car. The car's gonna react a lot more sensitively to the road when it's a lot stiffer. It's easier to predict that way. So, and then sway bar stiffness, anti-roll bar, whatever you want to call it, I usually pump it up to 15 and leave it back at 0. Now, these will get adjusted later. Most of my comp builds end up in like 25 in the front and like 12 in the back, but this car's different. We're gonna end up changing all of this at some time. This is just a base tune. So now that my spring stiffness is set up, now I can adjust for my ride height. I think on D1 comp specs, yes, you can run 35 tire profile. I think I'm gonna run that 35 tire profile. So for now, see, the front is already at 35, the rear as well. And we're gonna pull this back, raise here just a little bit of a gap. Setting it up. Okay, now that I've adjusted the spring length, now I have to go back to alignment because I've changed stiffness. I meant to start in the stiffness section first because of this reason. But when you do this, and it's kind of a good thing I did this, because now you know. Now if you adjust alignment first and you go back to stiffness and adjust spring length and spring stiffness, your alignment's going to be off. Remember, we set our camber at 5. Now it's at 3. It's like, how did it backpedal? So now we'll pull this back down to 5 where we want it, because now the car is where it's supposed to be. And this is what I like to see. Our camber in the rear all the way up at 1. Now I have some adjustability in the positive direction, because when I tune for grip, I want this car to squat a little, and then that positive camber is going to bring it down, and it's going to be nice and flat when we're on power. Okay. I just wanted to take some time to kind of explain like what was going on there. The reason why I wanted adjustability in the back, I wanted to raise the car enough to have adjustability in the positive direction with camber. The car's going to squat later, and I want that adjustability, and before I didn't have it, so that's why I adjusted it. Wheels, I was full rear end all the way back at 70. Our front pressure is definitely going to come down, so I'm going to put it at like 190. I already know it's not going to stay at 200. Our wheelbase width, sometimes I like to pull the rear end right where the tread is like against the fender, and same thing with the front, only the tread like from the top of the tire from the camber is meeting with the fender. You just set most of my cars like that. It's a nice fitment, doesn't look too bad, kind of closes that ugly gap that it has usually. And there we go. My brake bias, I'm gonna go ahead and leave brake torque just the way it is. I'm gonna move my front brake bias to 80 because that's always where I have my front brake bias. I might have to adjust brake torque later. Maybe my brakes will be a little bit more sensitive, but I know it's gonna have to be at 80% because that's the way I drive. You can adjust that however you want to adjust that. That's what I do. Engine. Here, I might not do too much here. I don't even know if this is the engine that I want to use, but I will bump this up just a little bit. While we're already making 1,000 horsepower. It's wild. So I think we'll pull this back down. We're making 982 out of the box. I think we'll leave our rev limiter where it is. You know what? I think we'll leave this engine in here. We might be able to make pretty decent power. Transmission, always on sequential and never on anything other than sequential. This is what I do adjust. So all my comp builds, I'm on clutch base limits of differential. And preload, I'm gonna have to adjust that later. We'll leave it where it is right now. This power lock and coast lock, I'm definitely going to adjust. Right now, I'm gonna leave it where it is. I kind of want to show you what it's like. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna pull this all the way up to 100, and then pull this coast lock just underneath it at 95. And show you how much speed you can pull out of running an open diff. A lot of guys run a locked diff, and I don't like a locked diff for my competition builds at all. I like a very open diff. Our final drive, our top speed is at 188 miles an hour. Acceleration 0 to 60 is 4 seconds. We're probably going to pull down the final drive. You can pull a lot of speed out of it as well. So with all these settings kind of set where they are, I'm going to test drive, and I'm going to put this on Modelo Park. All right, so it's going to be like first impressions of this car, just kind of learning how it reacts. I can already tell the rear end's not too predictable because it's running a lock diff, super slidey. Already tell like my downshift, I'm not slowing down a lot. just kind of first initial thoughts of it. Right now, I think it's a little too slidey. I think the transition speed's a little too slow. This is all stuff I'll end up adjusting later. Run this comp line that we usually run in MTR. Gotta use e-brake to be able to transition there. Or maybe I don't have to. Okay. Let's mess with some settings. So, my initial thoughts. I don't like the transition speed at all. So, I feel like, you know what, the camber is actually probably pretty good. I don't like the dive speed. So, in order to change how quickly the car dives, you can adjust caster, camber, and toe. They all kind of do something a little bit different. Toe, to me, is when the car takes angle. If it takes too less angle, your toe's too low. If it takes too much angle, then your toe's too high. And too high meaning high in the negative. And if it's too low, it's low in the negative. So right now it's low in the negative. High in the negative would be like 0.60. So right now, I think I'm gonna pull this up to 0.30 and see if it pulls more angle when I end up pulling and doubling over, pulling on angle. Also talk about the settings we need to be able to pull more angle, because you don't want to set your toe too high and then it pulls too much angle and it's not controlled. You can control that with your Ackerman angle. So still a little slow, but we're getting there. Right now I feel like the front end isn't getting the angle that I want, so I'm gonna go ahead and adjust Ackerman. Put it at 53 for now. See what that does for us.
No, stop! What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Pretty good angle. Not quite enough, so might adjust Ackerman angle just a bit, just a tad more. I'd set my waypoint here on the comp line we usually drive. Now just tuning the front end is I want to tune everything that I need in the front end first, and then I will mess with the rear end. I don't want the settings that I set the front end be counterintuitive because I'm trying to correct what I feel in the rear end. So I think for now that's good. So little lesson on Ackerman angle. So your Ackerman, we zoom up on this, we select Ackerman, your tires are going to move over. Now the cool part about Ackerman is as you adjust it, it's adjusting in real time. Now what's cool is I use Ackerman angle to pull more angle. If I want a car to pull more angle, I want to run a real technical line, I usually don't adjust toe, I don't adjust camber. Those adjust the way the car acts. All I want to adjust is the angle that it's taking, and the way I do that is with Ackerman. So I don't know if you can see this, but at 100% the wheel's more towards the front, and as I pull it back, the wheel's gonna pull way back. That is how you pull more angle out of a car without adjusting all these other settings, and then it's gonna change the feeling of the car. This just adjusts the angle. So if I set up for a real technical line, more Ackerman angle, possibly more pressure or less pressure in the front wheels, a little bit more transition speed, and boom, we're done. Those two settings, I don't have to adjust much of anything to run that line. If I want to run a more open line, a more wide line, I'll pull this up. I don't need as much angle. This is the important part because I want more speed. Now, the less or the more Ackerman angle that you have, more closer to 100%, the more speed you will have. The lower it is, the less speed you'll have, but the more angle you'll have. Now there's a sweet spot in this middle area. I like 50%. It's right dead smack right in the middle. I usually run 50% because I don't want to lose any more speed, but I want a lot of angle. Now, if you feel like the other driver has maybe a little bit more of an edge, a little bit more speed on you, you can always pull your Ackerman up and pull a little bit more speed out of it. Just keep in mind you're going to lose that angle and you might risk overturning and you're going to lose the battle. So I'm going to leave this at 51 where it was. That's Ackerman angle, what it means to me. I think caster, camber, and toe are just on point. They're where they're supposed to be. Now, last setting right here, rear axis on camber. The way that I do this is through Kino. But first, I want to talk to the console players because the console players don't have Kino. They can't do any of this. So, let me explain this. This car's slow right now. There's a reason why I've left it like that, because I want to pull more speed out of the rear end just by adjusting camber. So what you're going to do is pay attention to how quick you're going to run a line. Run a line that's consistent. And pay attention to how quick you're running through that line. So it looks like 50, 48 miles an hour on entry, 36 on this turn, 37 through here, and like 35 coming up. Again, run the line again. Memorize these numbers. Looks like 55 in through here, 45, 44 in there, 30 in this turn. Looks like we're 35 coming out on the end. About, yes. Now, you're going to adjust rear toe or rear camber until obviously you're going to adjust and you're going to see more speed. And it's going to get quicker and quicker and quicker until a point where it starts getting slower. You're going to have to pay a lot of attention to when that happens. There's a sweet spot right in the middle when those tires are flat. So right now I'm going to adjust them. I'm going to adjust this up by 0.1. Always small increments, never do a lot. You'll miss it and you'll just be chasing your tail back and forth. Here's that 0.1. I already see I pulled a little bit more speed out of this car. 47 on entry, we're at 38 on this turn. A little bit the same. Adjust it again. Sometimes it doesn't change. Back to alignment. Just said one more click again. Try again. This takes time. Be patient. Try and learn as much as you can. Just adjust settings. Be experimental. Grab a car you don't care too much about that you want to set up and have it be the donor car for what you want to learn. This car's getting way better. So you're going to keep doing this until it's correct. Now, for PC, it's so much easier because with Kino, you have the suspension monitor. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that suspension monitor out. But for console players, this is the best way I've been able to pull this out. To adjust rear camber the way you're supposed to. Make it, put it where it needs to be. So, Now, back to the dyno stand. I fat fingered my dyno stand button. Keep doing that. Now, we're at 0.39. I'm going to pull this back down where it was. Pull up to the line. I'm going to pull up our nifty Keynote menu. Now, under key binds, you're going to find a feature called suspension monitor right here, right under toggle driver visibility and above toggle custom camera. Mine is on my home button on my keyboard. Once you have that binded, press that key you binded it to, and now this is what your suspension's currently at. And it doesn't lie, because this is exactly what our settings are at. Our front camber was at 5 and our rear was at like 0.4 or 0.5. So we're on a road that looks like it's not flat, so we're getting a little bit different on each side. It looks like 0.02 on the right end. And now what you're gonna do is just do a simple launch and pay attention to what these numbers are while you're launching. So it looks like we got a consistent number of 7 before we got up to speed. I'm gonna do that again. Yep, consistent number of 7 before we pick up speed. So what's happening, let me back up here. You're taking off and the rear end's squatting. It's not squatting a lot, but it is. You can see that weight transfer. It's changing your camber. So now we're at 0.7. This is the cool part. You got that number in your head. You're gonna come down to dyno stand, go to alignment, and you're gonna pull this up literally 0.7, because that's where it's supposed to be at. That's what it's off by. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clicks. 7 clicks. Now, pull out your suspension monitor again and make a launch. Now the tires are flat in the back. You do have some digits on the end. I've seen guys adjust. What's the cool part about this is you can adjust with your mouse sometimes to try and pull out this fine number in the hundreds place to try and get those tires exactly flat. To me, if I was running a comp build, I would probably go that far. I want every bit of speed that I need, but for the sake of this video, I'm not going to do that. I'll just kind of show you how 0.68 is what we were at. I saw 0.69 there. You get what I'm saying. If you can finagle it, cool. If not, whatever. I'm going to leave it. Put it back at 0.68 where I wanted it. Our suspension monitor. Now we're going to drive the car. And now your suspension should be set where it needs to be. Alright, I think the next thing on the list here, I'm going to go ahead and jump all the way to differential settings. So we're going to go over and hop into transmission in the dyno stand. There's transmission. And this is how I pull most of the speed out of all my cars. I generally run like an open diff right from the get-go. This is a setting that I never set the way I set when I initially started driving this car. I would have gone with a way open diff right from the get-go because I already know it's going to be that way. But just for the sake of this video, what you're going to do is keep pulling this down. And I always like setting things off by 5 for power and coast lock. So a little lesson. Power lock is how much your differential is locked on power. Simple. How coast lock, obviously, how much your coast lock is on coast when your car is not accelerating. So very, very simple. Now, you're going to keep pulling these numbers. You can pull coast lock a lot less than power lock. What you're going to get is a hookup when you get off power. Now, that can be good if you want a hookup. You can grip up when you're on coast. And I like that because when you're tandeming in battles, if the lead car is pulling away, all I have to do is just throttle up into them, let off throttle. It's enough hook that I can go right behind them, and I just slot right into the pocket again when I'm on power. So I don't lose a lot of speed when I come off of power. I'm actually get more grip when I take off power than I do when I'm on power. Now, keep pulling this down until you feel the car is comfortable. For me, I run such an open diff. My driving style is left foot braking. I do a ton of left foot braking, and as a result of that, I run a really open diff. Most of my cars have like a lot of grip, and for somebody who's not familiar with a lot of left foot braking, it's very difficult to drive. Keep pulling this down until you're comfortable, but just keep in mind, the more open you have it, the more speed you're gonna get out of that car. All right, now this car already drives better. This is the sauce. This is what I have another little sauce in suspension. I'm gonna do at the end of this video. That's the last thing I do for a car. But right now, I think this car drives pretty good. I'm gonna keep pulling down this diff, and it's probably gonna start driving way better. So I did it again. Test drive, dyno stand. Now, back to transmission. I'm gonna pull this way down. I'm gonna go like 50%. And I'm gonna go 5 below, 45%. Run the line again. See, off power, I'm able to pull to the inside of the corner. And then on power, pushes me out to the end. Still not enough speed for me. I'm gonna pull a little bit more. This is what I do on a daily basis. I know this works. I've done it on almost all the cars in CarX. Some cars work better than others. I had to do some things that kind of go against my theory as well. Alright, now I've ran into a problem, and this usually happens when I adjust the diff. My transition speed has gotten slower. But no problem. You can do two simple things. You can either pull more camber out, or without adjusting the way the car feels, I can adjust the wheels front tire pressure. I'll pull that down 5 kPa. Let's see if I don't have to use any brake here. Oh, no, I did. So I'll pull a little bit more out. We're at 180 kPa now. Start this line. Awesome transition speeds. This car's starting to drive really, really, really good now. But I want more speed. More. Now, I'm gonna go for what I think this car usually, what I would set it at. I think this car, I'm gonna run 0 coast lock. Done this on a couple cars. We'll see how this goes. Oh, dragon booty there. Awesomeness. Pulled a whole bunch of power out of the car just as I expected. I think it's time to pull a little bit more power. 990. Back to the start. Okay. It's a little too slidey. So now, time for preload. Transmission. Preload. Usually I go with more preload. It tends to pull a little bit more speed. I do this in increments of 5. Keep adjusting up until you feel like you've pulled enough speed. It's just like rear toe. At a point you're gonna lose speed, and that's the sweet spot. If you keep adjusting and it keeps getting worse, unfortunately where you started is where you're gonna have to keep pulling back. So at this point it was 60. If it starts getting worse, then we're gonna have to pull it back. So instead of 60, you go to 55. Did get some speed out of it. Little bit. Okay. I think after this last one, it's gonna have some adverse effects. Just I'm kind of feeling the way the car feels right now. Yeah. It's too slidey. Now we'll pull it back just by like 3 increments. It's driving really good. All right, now preload set. That's where I want it. I think I can pull some more speed out of this. So now I'm gonna start adjusting my power lock. Okay. I think we're gonna leave that where it is. Now, I'm gonna adjust sway bar. Sway bar is another way you can pull speed out of a car. I adjust these the way they are right now proportionally, and what I mean by that is right now front's at 15, rear's at 0. If I adjust 15 to 16, I adjust the other side as well. So I keep going up and up and up and up, and I'm gonna go up to 20. And right now, that's proportionally adjusted. Okay. Another thing, if you adjust preload, you're gonna have to adjust your rear end usually again. So we'll check that again with the suspension monitor. Actually, I think the rear end does squat a lot, so I feel like the stiffness isn't where it's supposed to be at. So this up to 70. Now we've got to readjust again. It's just at 4 to 5 over. So now we'll adjust back to 5. No. Cancel back. No. Keep doing that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This drive. Suspension monitor. Still 0.1. Test drive. That's what I want. I want the car to go a little shallow. So once I start getting the car reacting where it's hard to get to the outside zones of a line, I know that I've pulled a whole bunch of grip out, and that's kind of the way I set up the car. Finally broke 37 there on the end. Keep adjusting this transmission. Keep pulling this power lock down. I've actually had this power lock down on one car at like 9. Okay. We'll sway bar up just a little bit more, just incrementally 2 and 2. Looks like our transitions have suffered a hit there. Wheels again, down by 5. it's time to mess with our final drive. So I don't think wheels need to be adjusted again. Oh, we are running 20s in the front. That's gonna make a really big difference at the way this car acts. I don't know when that got changed, but let's drive the car. Sometimes this happens. Yep, our transition speed suffered as a result of that. So, no bad. Nothing bad going on there. Just pull more KPA out of the front. Bad. Okay. Let's come down to transmission. We're gonna adjust our final drive. Move this way over and try to make 200 here on top speed. It's a good starting point. Just gonna get a feel for how these gears are gonna react with this engine. A lot of cars I keep on stock gearing and just adjust final drive. Other times I will adjust the gears the way I want them to be. Maybe I'll pull like chaser gears and use those with like a V8. Pulling a little more speed out of this car. Keep adjusting that final drive. I want to make sure I did. Yeah, okay. Let's pull this weight up, like 350. Really fast entry. Time to pull the engine max torque down because I feel like this engine's just not enough torque to push that. And what's cool is we got a little bit of adjustment already, so I'm gonna pull this down, see how far we can get it out. Okay, 4100 RPM. We're gonna round that off. We're still pulling 900 horsepower. I'm gonna pull that horsepower way back up where I want it, and then keep the max torque down. And this will help pull those gears, push those gears that are having a lot of trouble just because of the lower RPMs. And I'm gonna go ahead and max this rev limiter because that's what I do. All my cars, there's enough headroom there. Some cars I've pulled it down because it's just too much. It's too much RPM. It's too much feathering. I don't want to feather that much. I want the car to just kind of stop at a certain point. I don't want it to have any more RPM. So at that point, I would pull it down. But I was gonna max it for now. If I had to change it, I will change it. Alright, I think it is time to pull the dip down a little more. Let's put it at 9. Alright, since we pull that torque down, I think we can pull our transmission just a little bit more. A little bit more speed. More. This line a little different because this car is reacting a little different now. Just kind of learning its weaknesses. Does it like a lot of power? Does it not? I still don't like the coast lock where it's at. I don't have a lot more headroom there, but I can still move my coast lock down. Miles an hour through that inner clip. I think I'm gonna pull that a little bit more. Probably just one more click. Awesome. I think this car's running really good. Just kind of look over my settings, make sure nothing got bumped. They're where I want them to be. I think running more power is going to be, it's going to have adverse effects. I don't want to adjust the gearing. I think the gearing's kind of good where it's at. Might actually, you know what, I'll pull this down just a little bit more and see how this car reacts. Most of my tuning is just trying stuff till I feel like I'm full enough out of the car. shallow there. Give the illusion I was going quicker, but didn't hit the line quite correctly. That was awesome. Good run. Okay, last but not least, after I've adjusted almost everything in this car, I don't think I want to adjust caster, camber, or just any of these. I'm just gonna leave them where they are. I could probably pull a little bit more accurate angle out, get more speed, but I think the speed's good. I'll leave the speed where it's at. The next section I'm gonna go over is your dampers, and I'm gonna show you a real cool way to do this. This is the way I tune my dampers. It's really accurate, and it just kind of gives you a human number for it. Dampers are so foreign to a lot of people, and it's really hard to kind of tune by feel because there's so many numbers. So, with that being said, what I like to use, you're gonna pop into Google, and you're going to look up a website called OmniCalculator. This little guy here, this pink menu, and what you're gonna do is pull this together. Now, your front spring stiffness is at 90. Now, you're going to want to set this up so this is under spring constant. Your damping coefficient is going to match this area. Newton meters. And now, your suspended mass. Obviously, you want in kg because CarX is in kg. And your spring constant in their Newton meters, kilonewton meters per meter. And then your damping ratio is going to be here at the bottom. This is the number I'm going to give you. This is the human number that I was talking about earlier. Right now, for console players, at this point, you've done the tuning that you needed to do. You're going to save. You go back to the menu. You want to pull your car weight if you haven't already written it down somewhere. That's how you do that. Go into the dyno stand, back out of the dyno stand, and right here under 1250 kg is what my weight is. That is where you're going to put the suspended mass, so 1250 kg. Now, we're going to come back to our dyno stand. We're going to go through all these dampers here on each end. 90 is our front spring stiffness. So we're going to do the front first. 90, spring constant, spring stiffness, same thing. Now, our damping ratio. You can mess with the correct numbers for what you think is going to be the right ratio. For me, it's between 0.6 and like 0.8. I'm not gonna give you the magic number. I'm gonna let you do what the car feels good for you, but it is 0.6 to 0.8. So those are the numbers I'm talking about. You're gonna be inputting those in the damping ratio area, 0.6 or 0.8 through 8. So you could have it at 0.7, you could have it at 0.75. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to put it at 0.6. Now this damping coefficient it spits out. This damping coefficient, you're going to copy this, put it down on a piece of paper, PC, Control C. You're going to go under damper rebound. This is the first number that's going to go through. Damper rebound, I just spit that right in there. Now, to set up bump, what I found a good number is 1200 less than damper rebound. So your bumps are always going to be 1200 less on fast and regular bump and rebound. So at this point, this is 12,730. I'm gonna adjust 12. Now we're at 11. That's 1,000 and 100. So 200 less. So 7, 6, 5, 530, 11, 530. Now these are set the way they're supposed to be set at. Now your fast bump, a little lesson here now. Dampers under normal operating forces are going to be a little stiff. Your fast bump and fast rebound are going to change because that's the way your suspension acts when the road changes drastically. So you go over a speed bump, so you hit a dip, your fast bump and rebound is what's reacting to that. And those settings are generally softer. And that's where this human number comes in. This human number, the higher it is, the stiffer the dampers are, and the lower it is, the softer the dampers are. So it's just an easier number rather than talking in like the 12,000 Newton meter. You know, oh, 12,000 is really stiff, and like 8,000 is on the softer side. I just like using the damping ratio number because it's so much easier to talk humanly between everybody. That's that human number. So at this point, I'm going to be pulling this back down to 5. So I know this might be a little bit overwhelming. Front end, I put at 6 because I want it stiffer on damper rebound and damper bump. Those are your regular dampers. I'm putting them at 6 because I want them a little bit stiffer. I'm going to put the fast bump and fast rebound on the front end still. We're still on spring constant 90 at 5. I want them softer. So now I'm going to plug this number into our fast rebound. Remember, rebound is the first damper you do. 10,000. Now, less than that would be 9,000, and then 2 minus 200, that'd be 90. So it'd be 90, 90. And now these are set to where they're supposed to be. Now, front end is set where it's supposed to be. Let's move to the rear end. Now, the rear end, we're going to pull this back to 6 because that's originally what the front end was on. And now we're going to change the spring constant to what your spring constant is in CarX. 70 right there. 0.6, we're at 70 in the rear. Now we're going to grab this, and where are we going to plug it in? Rebound. Remember, this is 1,200 less. So we're at 10, and then 220. That's too much. 10, yeah, 20. That's 1,200 less. Now, this number, I'm gonna pull this again in the calculator back down to 5 because this is fast rebound and fast bump. Again, rebound first. Just did it to myself. CarX is gonna round off. Just that's where I wanted it at. It's not gonna have to be perfect. You can't get it perfect in CarX, but you're gonna see a drastic change in the way the car acts by adjusting your dampers this way. Remember, 1,200 less. We're gonna be at 8 now, and this is 350 minus 200, which would be 150. 8150. So now your dampers are set. I want to stress this a lot. When you set your dampers, you want to be sure this is the last thing you're doing. Because once you set your dampers, if you adjust spring stiffness because you feel like your car's spring stiffness just isn't enough, like I did earlier, and I felt the rear end squatter a little too much. When you adjust spring stiffness, your dampers no longer work for that because they've been calculated for that spring constant. So if I was to go in here and change 70 to 75, now these dampers, the system is underdamped. And that's exactly what it means here on the calculator. You can never have a system that's properly damped, unfortunately with the calculator. But in CarX, you will have a severely under-damped system if you do exactly this. So I'm going to go ahead and reverse that, put it back at 70, and do not adjust your spring stiffness without adjusting your dampers again to that new number. So if it was 75, I'll come over here, plug 75 in here, and plug this new number in, and then it would be 12,000 less than this new number. So now that I've adjusted dampers, things are going to change a little bit now. Our alignment might change. We might have to adjust a couple things, but your car should feel way, way, way better. So again, I'm going to pull this together. We get rid of the damping calculator for now. Test drive this car and see how this feels. This should be like a super big difference. Car should feel really, really stable. I would move the dampers up. Instead of 0.6, that human number I was talking about, that 0.6, I would move it up one more increment, 0.65, and try that, see if that works. This is the grueling part of the last squeezing of every drop of speed out of a car. This is the part that takes the longest, that's the most tedious. This is what I love about comp driving, is that if you're able to have the patience to do this, your car will be faster than everybody else's. You will have more side speed. You'll have better launch speed. Huge, huge angle on entry there. Not as fast through the last clip or the last outer zone, but that inner clip was much quicker. So with that being said, I've gone over everything. I've gone over spring length, setting your spring length at the proper time in the beginning, before or after you adjust your alignment. So again, I started the video in alignment. You want to start in stiffness first. Start in stiffness and set your spring length and set your spring. You can set your spring stiffness there, but set your spring length for both the front and rear end and get your ride height right before you adjust your alignment. Because if you adjust your alignment and then go adjust your stiffness and spring length and everything, it's going to mess with your alignment. Now it's not where it's supposed to be. Don't do this when you're driving either. It's the same thing. Wheels, set it to your comp specs, whatever comp you're running in, and I always pull my KPA in the back as far out as possible. We're not in Assetto Corsa. We don't have tires that heat up unless you have PRM. We're not going to wait for that. 70 kPa, you're going to pull as much grip as possible out of the rear end in CarX. Always leave it at 70 kPa. Some comps require certain cars not to run 70 kPa because there's just too much rip. So it's a little bit of a nerf to that car because it's better than everybody else. Again, back to stiffness. All your dampers, I've showed you how to calculate your dampers and what those numbers go through. You know, the 0.6, the 0.7, the 0.8, all that. Your car weight in kg, your spring constant, spring stiffness. Those are terms that are interchangeable. Setting the bump on each damper to be 1200 less. Adjusting your sway bar stiffness, adjusting that to pull a little bit more speed out, adjust it proportionally. Do that proportionally. That's what we were talking about earlier. I can probably pull a little bit more sway bar stiffness to try and get this car a little bit stiffer, but I feel like it's too stiff right now. And that's what's causing a little bit of less grip. So I might pull this back and see, you know, what the results are of that. This is experimentation. No car is the same, no driver is the same. You're gonna have to adjust these settings, but for the sake of this video, this is why I'm making this. You get to see my tuning live time and how I do it. Tow. Remember we talked about tow earlier. You don't want too much tow, so you're gonna slow down the car. You don't want it too less because you're not gonna be able to pull enough angle. And that initial double over, getting two angle, camber. That's how you adjust the front grip. You can change front grip with camber, but it's going to change the feeling of the car. It's gonna make a surge feeling going into getting to angle, and that surge feeling can be lessened or brought in with camber. But main thing I use camber for is to adjust front end grip when I don't want to adjust the pressure. So once I've set the pressure, it was like, you know what, I like that pressure, but I feel like the transition speed's a little bit too much, or I adjust the pressure by 1 kPa and it's adverse by 1 kPa, but I still want to pull that little bit in, a little bit out, then I adjust camber by one click. Caster, you can adjust caster if you want your transition speeds quicker, and that works the same way as camber does. So the more you put in, the higher your transition speed. So let me pull this up and show you how that works. I'm just gonna change the way that the car feels. Now really snappy suspension, snappy steering. I personally don't like this. It's changed my front grip as well. I'm gonna leave that at 10. I did this again. I need to go through this menu like this. I'm so used to doing it with the Kino menu. I'm gonna pull that back down to 10. If I wanted to slow down the transition speed, I would do the opposite. So it's more fluid. It's not so twitchy. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave that where it was. At 10. Your steering axis offset. Now you might be able to pull more speed using this. Now you can pull it up and see how it feels. I will put a picture of a comment I found on Reddit by CallMeX8 in the CarX drifting subreddit. It goes over steering axis offset and kind of what it's used for. I'll put that like over top of the stream that I'm running here. I feel like this has caused a little bit too much front grip, so we can adjust this back down. See if that helps. Super deep on that zone, dropping. Make sure I wasn't, it's not the car and it's just me running a really bad line. I'm going to pull this back. There's your steering axis offset. Your Ackerman angle we already went over. Your Ackerman angle is you were going to adjust it earlier to give you a little bit more angle. You can adjust it for more angle. Just keep in mind you're going to lose speed the more left you go with it at the lower percentages. and you're gonna get more speed with it in the higher areas. So remember, more angle with low, less speed, um, less angle, more speed with the high numbers. So again, we'll leave that at 51 where it was. Now, kingpin angle inclination. This is where a lot of people get lost. So caster is you're moving the shock on the spindle forward or back on the car. And that's how it's adjusting caster. That's how caster adjusted on cars in real life. That's how it's changing the weight of the wheel. And that's why transitions are quick, because it makes the wheel feel really heavy. And when you're at full lock, the wheel's real heavy. And when you let it go, that natural weather vane, super heavy, going to try and pull the car back to center more quickly. So that's what caster is doing. Now, caster is adjusted from the top of the spindle. Now, kingpin angle inclination is changing the angle the spindle is at from the bottom. So it's like the A-arm shortening or elongating. Now it's going to change the attitude of the front end drastically. I've seen a lot of wheel drifters pull this way down because it really helps with like a more controlled transition. On controller, you don't feel much of a difference just because that assist is doing a lot of the work for you. Right now, I'm on assist on controller. You can see it a little bit more fluid, but it is slower. Now, when you adjust kingpin angle inclination, wow, I did this to myself again. When you adjust it, you might have to pull back or pull up your caster, and then pull back your camber. It's gonna make things feel just a little bit weirder. That's a lot of wheel stuff. I can make another video on like wheel tuning and stuff like that, getting things put together. My boy going crazy from LDT as a wheel drifter every single day. He only drifts wheel. I'm gonna try and work with him and try and get maybe make a video just for wheel specific drivers. But most of the settings that I've gone over today are interchangeable. They go both ways with wheel. Wheel's gonna just be a little bit different. You're more in tune with the car, and you're gonna feel things way different than a controller drifter would. And so things are gonna change, and it's that assist that's really the big difference between both, is that the controller assist is doing a lot of the work for you, and the wheel guys have to deal with it. They have to counter steer on their own. So, and things feel way different, and I feel like the AI is just a little slow and it's sluggish, and so I'm tuning around that. And with the wheel drifters, they don't have to deal with that. The wheels are at their will, and they can adjust it however they want because they have a wheel. I don't have a controller. All I have is a joystick to move and hope that the AI or the script that's causing my car to counter steer is going to make those corrections based on my joystick inputs. So that's kingpin angle inclination. It's a little hard to understand, but just remember, kingpin angle inclination is from the bottom of the spindle, and caster's from the top. And it really changes the way that the front end acts. I can't really tell you in words how that feels. You're just gonna have to adjust those settings and see what they do for you. But I can tell you right now, and you can already see that lower angle inclination, kingpin angle inclination, causes the car to be a slower transition, more controlled transition, and higher would obviously be the adverse effect. We've gone over wheels already. Setting your wheels to your wheelbase width. Setting I like to set them with the tread right up on the fender there. We did that earlier. Your tire profile is going to be whatever your comps allowed. Some comps I've been in allow like 40% tire profile. I would run as much profile as you can, even though the car may look a little meaty. I don't care the way the car looks. Some guys are like, oh, I don't like the way it looks, and it looks dumb, and it looks like a monster truck. Well, you know what? My car's faster than yours, and I always run 40% if I can run it. So I don't care what the car looks like. I want the speed, I want the edge, and if they're offering 40, I'm going to use it. I didn't have to adjust my brake torque. You can run with no ABS. It's just going to change things. You're going to be able to lock the brakes up. That can help if you're just trying to push the rear end out. Most times I do run without ABS in most of my comp builds because it makes things more fluid. They move a lot skicker because ABS is not trying to keep me from skidding. This is drifting. We don't want to have control of not skidding. You want the car to skid. So that's how that works. Our engine, we went over earlier about how much horsepower I'm running and just kind of the early stages of where the transmission was at. You saw me pull down the max torque because the transmission at the time was like really hard for this engine to push through that. Maybe the turbo lag, maybe something that's causing that. So I ended up pulling max torque all the way down to 4165, and I didn't feel like I'd have enough power down there, so I ended up pulling the engine tune-up up and then my rev limiter, so I have a little bit more headroom there. We went over to transmission. I always run the clutch-based limited slip differential. I never run anything different. You shouldn't run anything different for your comp builds. You should always run this. So much control, so much adjustability. It can make it feel really good for you. Preload. This is preload. We went over preload, adjusting it till it feels good. Starts as soon as you start feeling adverse effects. Now that you're gonna have to bring it back down. So we went over preload, power lock. We went over coast lock. We went over. You always want your coast lock less than your power lock. Trust me, that's the way you want it. If you don't, you'll see the effects. Try it and you'll see. Final drive. I kept pulling my final drive until I could get faster and faster and faster. If you keep pulling your final drive down, there's going to be a point where your engine's not going to be able to push the transmission anymore, and then you're going to start bogging. As soon as you start bogging, you're going to have to pull it up, and so your engine has enough headroom to push that, enough torque to push that. You can adjust your gears individually and adjust them. I just leave them stock and adjust final drive. If I have to adjust any of these gears at some point, I feel like maybe in some wide line, I'm running 5th gear and it bogs down too low, and just pull this back a little bit, and make it closer to the gear before. And now that gear is not bogging so much. So this is the way that I adjust my cars. This is how I tune. Yeah, this is it. Hopefully you learned something from this video. I'm gonna go ahead and work on this car a little bit more, try and pull things out just a little bit, maybe adjust these dampers to some higher numbers and see if I can pull some more speed out of the car as a result of that. Maybe do some alignment adjustments, maybe some caster, see how the rear end and front end react to some of these adjustments that I make. But I hope this video brought some knowledge to you today. My name's Sideswipe. I'm with the boys over at MTR, Minotaur Technical Racing. That's my team. I started over a year ago in May, and it's pretty cool to be able to put this video together. I want to thank all the drivers that have been in my development process. I want to thank BTC Brian. BTC's not around anymore, but Brian, if you're out there, I respect you. I brought everything that I know into this video, and have some of that stuff that I've learned from you. I want to thank Kratos from MTR, one of my admins. Kratos is an awesome guy. He too has given me so much tuning tips, so many things to go off of. He brought me into the clutch-based limited slip differential. He's the guy that got me into the nitty-gritties, sway bar, and my alignment, and my Ackerman, all that stuff I learned from Kratos. Ronnie too. Ronnie has just pulled so much more than I could think of out of some cars that I couldn't get more speed out of. Just want to thank the entire team of MTR. At this time, the audio at the bottom of this video is no longer relevant, so just wanted to take some time to thank everybody with MTR, everybody that has helped MTR get to where we are today. I want to thank UDA, going crazy over at UDA. They were part of LDT, at one time. I want to thank ODT, they're no longer around, and you know, just for them helping us in our development. I just want to thank CDT, our other partners, great guys over at Team Cloudy. You know, they've done everything they can to try and help us with our new comp series, MCO. It's just been a great time with you know, making relationships with CarX, and you know, this is my full tuning guide. I hope you guys learned something today. If you have any questions, please leave comments at the bottom of this video, and that'll be it. Thank you everybody for watching my video.